And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Reddick. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. You can also rate the podcast and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. It would also be greatly appreciated. We're talking strictly Eagles today and no one else to do with it. My friend, Thomas Petersen, is back. Missed him. Thomas, we're 4-0, baby. How we doing?
We're 4-0. And did you just notice how your mood just kind of just skyrocketed? Like, just with every win, it's exponential. Like for every win that comes now, it just goes better and better.
I had this conversation with a couple of friends. I'm in a group chat with like two of my best friends, a Packers fan and a Bears fan. Who I'm a Bears fan, the co-host of the show, Eric Warner, of my podcast. And I was like, I don't know if like I'm nuts, but my mental health changes when the Eagles win. Like I don't know if that's normal, but kind of just piling on to what you said. It's crazy how much a football team's victories can change the mental health of fan base. I think we all probably need therapists.
We're all way too invested.
Yes, that's to say the least.
We're all addicted to alcohol, scrolling on our phones, and Eagles.
The mental health of the youth, Thomas, is just not there right now.
Nah, we're fucked.
No, we are fucked. But anyways, Birds 4-0, baby. Another victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Eagles defeat the Jaguars 29-21 in an absolute monsoon, basically, of weather in Philly. It was not a pretty game. This was actually on the calendar, one of the games I was like planning on going to. For this year, happy. I don't know if I'm happy. It would have been a good game.
It might actually have been an experience.
Yeah, exactly. I went to the Eagles. My first Eagles game I went to was Eagles Colts. It was actually Wentz's first game back in 2018, and it was pouring rain that game, and it wasn't the greatest, but I had fun. So I've experienced the rain at the link. So I think I've checked that one off my box. Checked that one off the box, but yeah.
I thought this was going to be one of those games where they're kind of pumping up the rain, like, oh, it's going to be shitty weather and rough conditions. And then when the game starts, you don't see a drop of rain and everybody's just passing like nothing happened. You could really tell, like, it was coming down hard in that game.
It was weird. You could see it in like spurts, right? Like, I think there was like a point in the third quarter was pouring, but like the first quarter wasn't too bad. It's kind of bizarre. The weather was definitely not for fan standards, but I think this was my biggest takeaway, just big picture takeaway right off the bat here from this game was the Eagles looked like they weren't playing in rain. The Jaguars looked like they were playing in rain. If that made sense. The Eagles were able to adjust to the weather and play its style of football on offense and defense where the weather didn't impact what they wanted to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely think we saw an adjustment to it like they didn't really throw it down the field. They rarely targeted anybody more than 10 yards down the field, and wisely so. I mean, for a good portion of the game for the Eagles, it was pretty much just run, screen, short pass, run.
Mm-hmm. Quick game.
Quick
and it was
game.
Good. They executed it perfectly. Yeah, they executed it well. We said before the show we wanted to start with the defense because I think the defense was kind of the takeaway of this football game. So why don't we do that? Thomas, what was starting with defense? What did you make of the defensive performance by the Eagles?
Yeah, so I think this was this was a game where if the defense doesn't step up the way that it did in the first and second quarter, and pretty much throughout the game there in the second half with the bunch of takeaways, Hassan Reddick going absolutely bananas. Eagles aren't winning that football game. It wasn't really that dominant of an offensive performance. 5 takeaways and only putting up 29 points. Like the defense played out of their minds in this game, and really limited the Jaguars. I mean, there was kind of a momentum change there with the third Jaguars drive, where Trevor Lawrence fumbles without any like unprovoked fumble. And like he couldn't run for the first down himself. There was a wide open receiver. He overthrew Agnew for an easy touchdown, and they don't get any points out of that drive. If they got points there, I don't know if the Eagles are coming back in the game. So really, it's also kind of like a few plays here and there that go the Eagles' way. But from that point on, the defense just took over and didn't really look back. That one touchdown they got was a drive where Josiah Scott, for some reason, was playing something that like he was playing zone when everybody else was playing man. Like, so yeah, that was just Josiah Scott drive. But other than that, I think they played the defensive line.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And TJ Edwards, god damn. I mean,
second highest ranked linebacker in the NFL right now, TJ Edwards. He's been outstanding.
Yeah, and he continued that game.
Yeah. So I think you nailed it. You brought up turnovers. I think that's the big one to look at here. The Jacksonville Jaguars had 5 turnovers, and the Eagles scored 24 points off of 5 Jaguars turnovers, 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal. That was the game, right? Like if you look at it in a nutshell, the Eagles only turned the ball over once. Jaguars turned over 5. Eagles scored 24 points off of 5 Jaguars turnovers, and that's how you win football games, right? Football is a lot of football, kind of in a nutshell, is basically don't turn the ball over, hold on to the football, and the Eagles were able to do that. Jacksonville was not able to do that. So Jacksonville's offensive performance was 29th out of 30 teams so far in EPA per play, so they were the second least efficient offense in the NFL. So give the Eagles credit for basically shutting them down. And you're right, there was 2 Jacksonville drives, right? They had the one in to make it 14-0, I believe, right after the pick 6. They kind of drove down the field. That was a Josiah Scott drive, I think you're talking about. And then they had
that was also the Josiah Scott drive. The very last one where they get a long bomb down the field, and then somebody's wide open down the field again. Mm-hmm. That was the Josiah Scott drive.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
There was a lot of miscommunication. A lot of new guys were playing, right? You had Zach.
Right.
So we should mention Darius Slay left on the Eagles' defensive side of the field. He didn't play. It looks like he's going to be okay. No, not serious forearm injury. We still don't know forearm injury. So we still don't know exactly what the diagnosis is, but he didn't play. So it was Zach McPherson and James Bradbury were the 2 starting cornerbacks in this game. And then Josiah Scott had to mix in as well because I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson played a lot in the nickel, correct?
Not too much. They put in Josiah Scott a lot for the nickel role.
So this was a defense that hasn't played together, right? Darius Slay's an important cog of that defense. So being able to kind of continually just keep going when a guy like Darius Slay, a talent like Darius Slay gets out, it was super important.
Yeah, just think if Eagles don't pick up James Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and this week happens where Monte Maddox and Slay is out, you have McPherson and playing cornerback, and you have Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps playing safeties. God. And then somebody has to go in and play. Maybe you're playing Josiah Scott on the outside. Somebody else has to come in. Like, it would have been a totally different scenario. And James Bradbury, I mean, when Slay's not out there, he's a perfectly fine cornerback 1. I mean, he would have been the first cornerback on a lot of teams. He's playing at a super high, and that pick he gets, the most impressive thing about that was the fact that Eagles were going all out blitz on that play. So he's covering basically 2 guys down the field, and he's reading the eyes of the quarterback of when he's throwing that ball to bounce. It wasn't even his guy he was covering at that point. So that was a massive, massive play.
That was the biggest play of the game. I think we could talk about Hassan Reddick's strip sacks. I want to kind of have a segment on him because he's been awesome. But that interception was huge. That wasn't even a bad throw by Lawrence at all. It wasn't a bad decision.
It was just a perfect reaction. It was the correct read to make for Lawrence. And really it was like the Jaguars were driving. I mean, they were in perfect position to get some points back at that point.
So you had a tweet about James Bradbury. So through 4 games, James Bradbury has allowed 10 catches on 23 targets, 73 yards allowed. Insane. 0 touchdowns allowed, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups. It's pretty incredible to think how he just fell in this team's lap and at the right time. What if the Eagles drafted a cornerback, right, in this draft? Like, what if they took one? Let's say they don't trade for A.J. Brown, right? Let's say that they take Andrew Booth or Trent McDuffie. There, right? Like,
they wouldn't be playing because they're both injured.
Exactly. Like, so much. Like, it's funny how all of the pieces fell in place for this kind of defense throughout the offseason. So James, the secondary was awesome. Like the Jacksonville Jaguars couldn't do anything on offense. Like they couldn't throw the ball. Only 148 yards from Trevor Lawrence over the air in this game. He was incapable of kind of reading this defense and running the offense that Doug Petersen wanted. I also wanted to say, like, love Dougie P, but wasn't a huge fan of the game plan. I was a fan of it because, of course, I wanted the Eagles to win. But I think Jacksonville, I think Nick Sirianni outcoached Doug Petersen in this game because he adjusted to the weather. He adjusted the need to run the ball. And Doug Petersen it almost seemed like Trevor Lawrence was doing 5-step dropbacks a lot. Like they weren't getting the ball out quick. It was real tough.
No, I mean I was said on the Bradbury drive, they were driving. They were about to score at that point. Lawrence missed a couple of wide open guys for one would have been a touchdown to Agnew, another which would easily have moved the drive as well, but he just slips the ball. Then they have a turnover on a QB draw that was pretty manageable, 3rd and 1. Then Hassan Reddick's 2 sacks. I mean, that was just a big play by Hassan Reddick, and they lose the ball. So I think it was kind of, I mean, it was rough to be a coach like Doug Petersen there, because when they did maintain possession, they were driving, and then big play happened and they lose the ball. So, I mean, what else is there to do as an offensive coach in that situation? I mean, you can only put your guys in position to make plays there. And just so happened that James Bradbury made a hell of a play. Hassan Reddick made a couple hell of a plays, and Lawrence dropped the snap and unprovoked fumble. So I can't put too much on Duck for this game. I think he had them playing really good football in terrible conditions.
How about that pass rush by Hassan Reddick on the first one? That was clinical.
Yeah, that push pull, man.
Yeah, that was.
It gave so many vibes back to the Jordan Mailata game. I think we all know what we're talking about there, where he smacked Jalen Hurts on back-to-back plays.
That was Carolina last week, right? Yeah, it was Carolina last year. Tape grinder's dream. I know when you get your hands on the All-22, you're gonna be taking a look at that one right away. But yeah, Hassan Reddick. Like for the first 2 games, you were kind of, the whole fan base, and even including myself, was kind of wondering, like, can we get a little more out of this guy? He didn't have the stats. I think he was pass rushing okay. Like, it wasn't like he was bad. But the last 2 games, man, like 3.5 sacks over the last 2 games, 3 forced fumbles, which leads the NFL. If you just think about like what Howie Roseman's looking at from the press box, right? Like, he's probably looking down at this game and going, like, this is what I wanted. This, like, giving the money to Hassan Reddick. He was the game changer. He had 2 of the 4 sacks, and the 1 sack, right, was Trevor Lawrence kind of just falling, right? Like the ball fell out of his hands. So Hassan Reddick was basically the pass rush in this game. And if they don't sign him to a contract this offseason, Eagles probably don't win this football game.
Right, and it's nice to see that we're basically having different ways of getting to the cornerback, like from different pass rushers throughout the weeks. I mean, Lions, we all know it was kind of silent for everybody there. Against the Vikings, Josh Sweat popped off, Fletcher Cox popped off. Then we have the Brandon Graham game against Washington. Josh Sweat is there as well. And then Hassan Reddick takes over in this game. Hargrave got into it with Wentz. I mean, they all got into it with Carson Wentz. Everybody got a sack that game. But we're basically seeing, like, Eagles getting a ton of pressure without really doing too much. I mean, it wasn't like Jonathan Gannon called anything specific in this game against the Jaguars. It was pretty basic. I mean, they're running cover 2 and quarters for the entire game, basically. So it wasn't really, and that's why it was really also, like, just going through a mind travel here. That's why it was so unfortunate having Josiah Scott in there, and he struggled so much, because it wasn't really because he was bad. It's just because he didn't know what the play was. I mean, he didn't know when to play zone, when to play man. And like you can have jitters and you can be nervous going into a game and kind of mess up your technique a little bit, but simply not knowing what the play is very discouraging, because it's easy stuff. I mean, give me 10 days, you can run that. You can play cornerback there. You probably suck technique wise, but you know what to do. So, I mean, it's really vanilla what they're doing on defense, but they have playmakers for it, and they're doing what they have to. And really, what we saw from the Washington game is the guys in zone defense know what they're doing. I mean, they're not just dropping back to a circle drawn on a board and saying, this is where you need to go. That's what we see with Sweat and Hassan when they're dropping back there. But the linebackers are playing extremely well in zone right now. They're relating to guys, and then it doesn't look like zone all the time, because they're relating to where guys are running with the routes. So like, they're playing technique sound football right now on the defense, and it shows, because that allows the pressure to get there with only 4 guys.
There was a clip from last week. I think Fred Duffy posted it. It was a play where I think it was Kaiser White and Kaiser White. I can't remember I think Kaiser White and James Bradbury, where it was a kind of 2 in breaking routes. Curtis Samuel and Jahan Dotson were kind of crossing through the middle, and the way that Bradbury and Kaiser White were able to communicate with each other and pass those routes off. Like, it's exactly what Gannon wants, right? Like this, you can see them starting to play the style of defense that Jonathan Gannon has been preaching and has brought to this team from their beginning.
That's what the Saints have been so successful doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like these wall techniques when you're playing these underneath zones, because then like the Eagles are running a bunch of cover one as well with 2 underneath defenders, and it just makes everything easier if you can communicate in those underneath zones about who's crossing, who's not. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of translates to when you're playing zone coverage of who picks up the crosses when they're going in there. So, I mean, hats off to them right now.
So last thing on the defense. So right now, the Eagles over the last 3 games have allowed the fewest points in the NFL. So if you take out the Lions, like, I know you can't take out the Lions game, right? They allowed 35 points on defense. That was a bad game, but just take a look at the amount of points they've allowed over the last 3 games. Like Minnesota, how many was Minnesota 8 or 6? Washington 8. It's like 21.
They scored the same amount of points as they scored against the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
So 8. Yeah,
7, right?
7. Yeah, 7 against Minnesota, 8 against Washington, and 14 against Jacksonville. Like this team's not. I think the points are really important. What I wanted to finish on with this,
I guess it was 6 against Washington. 1 was a safety.
Yeah, you're right. So 6 points. So 6, 7, and 14 over the last 3 weeks. Like they're just not allowing points on the board, which is again going back to the roots of football. That's how you win football games, putting points on the board.
Right.
And quickly, one more thing, Jonathan Gannon. I think might have underestimated you a little bit after week 1. He's done a terrific job. This defense is rocking, and I do think he's playing different or coaching different. Like, I think he's changed it up a little bit. I'm noticing more blitzes on first and second down. I'm noticing more aggressiveness. I'm noticing putting his players in different spots. Like, I do think that he's adjusting and he's adapting, and it's good to see. I like to see kind of this defense going as a whole and being led by a guy that I didn't have trust in before the year.
Yeah, I'm just happy we get to see TJ was once in a while at blitz because he's so good at it. And for some reason, we weren't doing that at all for for an extended period. So I think, I mean, I get it. It's better because he's made the easy adjustments, and Eagles have defensive talent. So those adjustments just seem good because they have good players, and it shouldn't have taken more than it's fine. It's a good time to do it. We're in week 4, and they're playing good football. We were in week 2, and they were playing good football as well.
Yeah.
I mean, so easy adjustments made from the Lions game, and they've been rolling ever since. And they're winning in different styles of fashion, and like every week, basically, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
That was gonna be my big takeaway at the end. So we'll touch on that. But offense, let's jump on that, Thomas. So the Eagles score 29 points, again, being Jacksonville 29-21. I think the offense was efficient. They were able to move the ball. They did it in kind of different ways than they did the previous 2 weeks. Thomas, what was your big takeaway from the offensive side of the ball?
Great to see them bounce back after having a slow start, because we've seen these hot starts out the gate, and then what happens when they go through the adversity, losing Jordan Mailata early in the game, Jalen Hurts throwing a pick 6. Really excited to see how Jalen Hurts responded after that pick 6 thrown. And man, the way that he lit up the whole stadium and the team by those, what was it, 3rd and 20 and then 4th and 5 on the drive they scored the first touchdown on, and he absolutely trucked in on the goal line there against the linebacker.
The offense on your back, and
exactly, it was the picture perfect scenario, like rain pouring down on you, like weather shitty, and you just plow through a linebacker to get the touchdown. And really, when I was watching the games, like throw all the stats out the window, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what his completion percentage is when you can't throw in the weather like that. It was just a matter of putting enough points on the board, getting a W, and getting out of there. Because you weren't going to take anything away from the game when the ball slipped out of people's hands. So you couldn't really take anything away from that statistically.
Mm-hmm.
And yet still, it was actually pretty good. And a big reason of that is, like we said, the screen game, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, easy completions, and then making 15-yard gains after the catch. I mean, he had a super slow day. The entire offense had a slow day in the passing game. He put up 95 yards or whatever in receiving yards by being able to make guys miss and pick up extra yards. And still, I mean, they still moved the ball through the air a little bit.
Yeah, they
despite
did
these conditions.
When they need to. Like AJ Brown was awesome today.
Yeah,
and especially in these type of games, like the ball is going to be coming slower at you, and maybe not the right places you need to catch it. And when you have a guy like AJ Brown who has such like a wide range where he can put his hands and grab the ball in different places and can body out the cornerback, like that's covering him. AJ Brown's like he's almost built for the rain, if that makes sense. Like he's built for these style of games with the way his body type is. So
right,
yeah,
so,
I think.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just think it was nice to see the Eagles run the football because they couldn't do that against Washington.
Yeah.
They were terrible in the running game.
That's my biggest takeaway from the offense in this game was being able to run football 212 yards on the ground against the second best rushing defense in the NFL according to the EPA per play metric going into this game.
Second best in EPA per play, first in DVOA.
Yeah.
I mean, all the analytics say that the Jaguars, and it wasn't even close in terms of DVOA. Like it was a massive gap until number 2.
Yeah.
But seriously though, I'm sick and tired of seeing all these outside runs. Like it is driving me crazy because like the Jaguars, even in a game where it's pouring down, they got 6 guys in the box and they're running outside zones. And every time they ran it right up the middle, either with trap plays or inside zones, whether it be Sanders or Gainwell or Sermon, they popped. Like they moved people inside. Jason Kelce is playing at the peak of his career. Like he's playing
getting better with age, man.
It's so dumb. I mean, he is so good. It doesn't make sense.
Landon Dickerson was in his bag.
Landon Dickerson was a mauler in the game.
Robert Harrison didn't stand a chance against Dickerson all game. He was bullying him. Like I went back and watched a little bit of the condensed version of the game today. I was like, oh, that popped off right away. Like, holy crap, Landon Dickerson is destroying Roy Robertson Harris. And yeah, you're right. The Jaguars have a lot of speed on defense. I was talking about this earlier on Week on Radio, had some podcasts, is the Jaguars defense is fast, man. Like Trayvon Walker, Alua Khan, like those guys can run around and get after you. So you're right. I think when you're playing a defense like that, maybe running inside in between the tackles is the best. The problem is Miles Sanders isn't the best in between the tackle runner. He's more of an outside guy, so they kind of have to figure out a way to kind of counteract that. But on Miles Sanders, I don't want to poo-poo Miles Sanders. He was awesome in this game. Like he was a
really good bounce back game for Miles Sanders.
He carried the load today. Like he had a, like, again, if you take a look at the stats, like yards per carry and whatnot, but it's not getting.
It was like 4.7.
Yeah, like so 27 carries, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was just consistently getting that 4 to 5 yard pop every carry.
Right.
Like he wasn't
and held on to the football. I mean, was this the first? Like I don't remember a game Miles Sanders got over 20 carries.
I don't remember
bell cow running back this game.
Yeah, he was a 3-down bell cow back, and I don't think it was just because Boston Scott was hurt. I think they are transitioning to Miles. Like this is probably going to be the season for Miles Sanders. Like not maybe I don't think they're going to be running 27 times in the game because the weather dictated that, but I would be shocked if Miles Sanders isn't getting 70 to 75% of the touches as a running back going forward for the rest of the year. They seem to lean in on him, and rightfully so. He's playing really well right now. He deserves credit.
Yeah, but don't tell me you didn't get kind of like some Jay Ajayi vibes from watching Trey Sermon run.
Yeah, man. He had that one big run. Like Jalen Hurts takes a massive hit on that zone read because they didn't expect the guy was like, there's no way they're giving the ball to Trey Sermon. And he just rocks Hurts. Trey Sermon just takes off, and he had a nice broken tackle there. Like I know it was wet, the guy couldn't drag him down, but yeah, Trey Sermon's got juice for sure. He should be on the active roster going forward. In my opinion.
Yeah. It was, I think it was like that, and like we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. Like this was a very different style of winning than what they've been doing before. I mean, they haven't been winning by running the football this much. It's usually been Hurts taking off a lot when. I mean, and he kind of did too, like a couple of times in this game as well. But like Washington. Like you said, Jaguars have a fast defense, and when you're playing against defense with fast linebackers, and it's been back-to-back weeks. I mean, Vikings with Kendricks, he's a fast guy. Washington with Jamin Davis, Cole Holcomb has some speed to him as well, especially Jamin Davis when he was the spy on those zone reads and getting out there for Hurts. And this game as well, they have some fast linebackers who could really get after it. So it limits Jalen Hurts' ability to pick up those first downs like he did against the Lions in week 1. He absolutely obliterated the Lions in the first week, and it's just been very different all throughout these last 3 weeks, and they're still putting up a ton of points and a ton of yards.
It reminded me of a 2021 win, right? Like this win, like kind of, when they were going on that winning streak last year, like it reminded me a little bit of that. Like the way that
it's a
they
good
won
comparison.
on offense. Yeah. Like the way
they
that
did exactly what they know they can do. And
exactly.
They just executed it poorly against Washington. And credit, Washington has a good defensive line. Like they're stout and stubbing the run. They stubbed Cowboys run a lot yesterday as well. But yeah, they got after it in this game.
So yeah, so my big, I don't think I have much more on the offense. I think the Hurts passing stuff, I think he did what he had to do. They had a nice like screen game going, quick passes. Like the Dallas Goedert tight end screen right now might be the best play in football. Like the most efficient play in football. When he gets blockers in front of him and the ball in his hands, he's as dangerous as it can come in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they did a good job of utilizing that. They just did a good job of getting the ball out early. Like Jalen Hurts had 6.5 air yards per attempt. It was the 8th lowest in the NFL this week, which I think is fine. Like in this game, like
it's very expected.
You don't want to be.
You want it to be low.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni deserve a lot of credit for kind of dialing up this game plan in this type of weather. Not much else I have on the offense. The offensive line was really good. And Jack Driscoll, I think, maybe deserves some credit too. Like he taking Trayvon Walker on midway through the first quarter is probably not very fun, right? Trayvon Walker's probably not the funnest guy you want to be blocking. He's got the long arms. He can kind of hit you hard. He's fast. So shout out to Jack Driscoll and just the offensive line in general.
Yeah, there's still a bit in me, and I know it isn't relevant on tackle, and you hit on it with Driscoll. I still think it was a couple of really sloppy reps from him. Like the same goes with Josiah Scott. Like a couple of reps where he just seems to not, like he just seems confused and doesn't really block anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They had like a play action fake power where he's like pulling to the opposite side and he's supposed to pick up the defensive end and he basically just stares at him while he goes in and hits Jalen Hurts, and you're like, the fuck, man? Like it doesn't take skill to just be like try. But I mean, he for the most part he did well. I mean, it wasn't a liability. It wasn't something that popped on the screen a lot, and that is what you want in a situation like that. It didn't seem like they had to use a ton of chipping from tight ends or extra running backs getting out there chipping before releasing out, something like that. Didn't seem like we're going to see the tape, but I didn't notice that at all. So yeah, big credit for Jack Driscoll. But like I was going, how much do you want to see Cam Jurgens after the preseason?
Yeah,
like when Isaac Seumalo went down, it's like, oh, I kind of hope we're gonna see Jurgens in there along with Jason Kelce, like side by side.
They have really dug into him being the backup center. It looks like
they really have. Yeah. They really have. But just when you saw him play center, like I just think like if it's so much more difficult snapping a ball and then reacting to the defensive line than just being ready at the stance.
Yeah.
Like
I think you deserve reps too.
I never played center. Like I played guard when I was in the when I was weighing a lot more than I am now. And I can only imagine having to snap a ball and then play. And like I don't know, man. It just there could be some super spicy outside runs if you had Cam Jurgens and Jason Kelce pull through that.
It could happen. Like maybe like Suapet, I think played fine. Suapet kind of
he played what? He played okay.
Yeah, he's a backup guard at this point. I think if you probably want extra juice in the run game, Cam Jurgens is probably the way to go. And I said it when they drafted him. I said it would make sense for him to be a backup guard this year. He's a second-round pick. You invested a high resource in him. Get him on the field as soon as possible. Right. But it seems like they're just really trying to get him ready to be the center. But anyways, I don't have much else in the offense. Big picture here. What my biggest takeaway from the Eagles so far from the 4-0 start is how they're beating teams and the different ways they're beating teams. So if you take a look, just go back to week 1, right, against the Lions. They had to score 38 points and the Lions scored 35 points. They barely won, right, against the Detroit Lions team. And they had to win by scoring a ton of points on offense. Week 2, Jalen Hurts throws the rock out the building, like with the best pass performance we've seen Jalen Hurts play. Week 3, they score 24 points in the second quarter, just stomp on the Washington Commanders' throat, and then just kind of coast for the rest of the way. Then week 4, they run the ball down the best run defenses throw in the NFL. Good teams win in different ways, and I don't think
they're a complete team.
Yeah, complete. Like that's it. This team can beat you in multiple different ways. This is a legit top 5 NFL football team in the NFL, and there shouldn't be an argument about it. That's how good they're playing right now. It's fun. This is a fun team.
Yeah, I think for me, right now, you and I talked about it, that we were both feeling bad about this game because Jacksonville were playing well. it felt like I just had a weird vibe about the whole like week leading up to it, Doug returning, all this kind of thing, and they started out slow. And when the first quarter ended, I was sitting on my couch saying, "Well, shit, can we get to next week?" Because
Yeah.
I mean, all these injuries and going down 14-0, and everything just seemed to go out the window. And they still pull off the win, and like they're complementing each other. Like week 1, offense takes over. Week 2, more complete team effort. Week 2, like week 3, defensive line absolutely dominates. Defense won this game. Hassan Reddick and Miles Sanders, you can make the argument. Those two guys won this game against Jaguars. So for me, I want to see them beat Dallas. I want to see a week 6 win. Then I'm all like, that's when I'm thoroughly on board of this year cannot go wrong if they beat Dallas in week 6 and really take that number 1 spot in the division and beat the shit out of the Cowboys.
I wanted to ask you this on this podcast. Are you a little not worried about Dallas, I guess? But I think Dallas is a threat, man. Like they're what now? They're 3-1 with Cooper Rush. You got Dak Prescott coming back. Like Dallas,
I don't think it's going to be a big difference between Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush with the way that Cooper is playing. Like I think because the offense is clicking for them. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference when like we'll see. I hope there's some quarterback controversy for Dallas. There is probably not going to be that.
Yeah.
But I just mean if you have a quarterback who's really sustaining drives and moving the chains, scoring a lot of points, what's the difference if another quarterback comes in? Like I don't really see it. For me, the only thing that can happen is Dak Prescott goes in there and they play worse. That's kind of the only because right now they're playing well and the defense is carrying them a ton right now.
The defense is unbelievable right now. They like their defense is top 5 right now, and that's where I was wrong on this team because I always thought the offense was going to take a step back because look, you lose Amari Cooper, you lose Cedric Wilson. Cedric Wilson's also doing nothing in Miami, but anyways, they lost players.
A bunch on the O line. They basically didn't Zach Martin also get injured?
Yep, and like again, they like Tyron Smith's down, right? So their offense was bound to take a step back. And on the defensive side of the ball, like defense is very finicky, right? Defense is so up and down. It's hard to consistently have a top 5 defense from year to year. Like so much changes on defense. So for them to kind of just continually to move on and have like they were second. I think so Dallas was first in defensive DVOA last year. Like they were one of the best defense in the NFL. And then to lose Randy Gregory, one of their best pass rushers, and then continue just like Dan Quinn's coaching out of his mind right now. And Eagles are 4-0, not trying to take anything away from that, but this division isn't locked up whatsoever. Like the Dallas is right there. They're going to come.
But if they go out, if they handle the Cowboys the same way they've been handling these last 4 teams,
that you're right.
Nothing's in the way.
Yeah, 100%. One last thing I will say, I had a tweet about this earlier. The Eagles, like the guys that Howie Roseman brought in, like AJ Brown, James Bradbury were awesome yesterday, right? Like they won them the game. Hassan Reddick too. Like if you just take a look at the additions that the Eagles made this offseason, they're getting such big contributions from, and it's really cool to see kind of the plan that Howie Roseman had this offseason come together.
Yeah, they probably have the best cornerback duo in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have the best wide receiver duo in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Yeah. 4-0, baby. Last undefeated team in the NFL. Thomas, you got anything else before we go?
No, I think we hit on all of it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. Thomas, I'll be back at least sometime within the next week. Maybe before or after Arizona Cardinals game. Cardinals, like for some reason, the Eagles just have trouble with the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know what it is, but hopefully they can kind of cast those demons. So they're heading to Phoenix to play the Cardinals this week. And
Zach Ertz game.
Yeah, Zach Ertz revenge game, baby. Not revenge game, but
but now we had the Deuce Staley game, Jalen Reagor game, Carson Wentz game, Doug Peterson game, and then Zach Ertz game coming up.
It's just
and then fuck Dallas week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is like it's a really fun kind of first 6 games for this team. But anyways, thanks so much for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out the content on the Double Line Podcast Network. Make sure to check out True Classic and BetterHelp, and we will talk to you later.